Hello everyone and welcome to Fallen Angel Customs. I'm sorry for the sudden silence, but sadly life got in the way. But I'm back now and that's what counts. This little project is actually part of a much larger project. A collab hosted by Puffle Dolls on Instagram. Each one of us will be uploading today to bring you all a little Christmas treat. So make sure to go and give everyone some love. Are you ready? Let's get started. I've had this little one for some time, so I've already done some prep work on her, such as removing her face, cleaning down her body and washing her hair, since it was super sticky and rather gross to the touch, but after a few good soaks it's almost as good as new. However, for the design I have in mind, the screen has got to go. I separated the green from the blonde the best I could, tying them into separate ponytails before snipping away at the green as close as I could to their head, using my pliers on the inside to remove the plugs themselves. I had to be really careful though, not to accidentally start pulling on the blonde plugs on the inside of her head, which, since it's so small, was surprisingly difficult. With the head free of green hair, it's time to work on her body. Using a nail file, I gently and carefully rough up the torso section to give the white paint something to grip to. It took 4 coats to reach maximum opacity, however, looking her over I feel something's missing. The white alone just looks too flat, so let's add a nice shimmer coat on top to give her a little bit more dimension. With her being so small, none of my current patterns will fit her, so it's time to make some new ones to her scale. I mark around her body on a folded piece of paper so that I can make sure I get the size and the placement of her tail right before freehanding the shape. I tested the pattern after cutting it out, however I wasn't happy with the original shape, so I redrew the pattern piece before moving on to the fabric and trimmings. Originally, I was only going to cut one of fabric and one of organza, however, after a little bit of debate, I decided to cut one of lining for a much smoother finish, plus the blue lining adds a nice pop of colour. I layer them right sides facing before pinning them all together, placing the lace on the inside so that when I flip it right side out, the lace will be on the outside edge. Again, it took me a couple of attempts to get it right. With the first one, the skirt just didn't sit on her body properly, and then I kept having trouble getting the lace to look right. It kept looking too stretched or out of place, but it was nothing a quick gather stitch didn't fix, helping the lace to look fuller and go around the curves easier. Also remembering to go around the tail hole and the waistband with an embroidery stitch to prevent the fabric from warping or fraying over time. For her top, I used the sleeve pattern I had from making clothes for an 11cm Ibitsu, as well as the back piece from the same pattern, adjusting them to fit as her torso is a lot thinner than that of the Ibitsu. With the adjusted pieces, I also managed to freehand a front section. I seem to have really liked variable fabric with this project, having chosen yet another one for her top. I made sure to fray check everything though, especially with them being so small and fiddly, The last thing I needed was for them to disintegrate or become unusable. The pieces were very quick to assemble, despite them being so fiddly, starting with the seams before sewing the sleeves in place. With the outer edge being so delicate, I decided to use ribbon instead of hemming it, going all around the edges, remembering to seal the end of the ribbon with a lighter to prevent it from fraying later down the line. Seeing the pieces together, the hints of blue are perfect for adding that touch of colour and, at the same time, adding to the frosty winter effect I was going for. Let's see what it looks like all together and make sure it all fits properly. A hook and eye will look too bulky in the front, so let's just stitch it in place so it gives it a much smoother finish. Because her arms have no articulation, it was a little challenging to get her top onto her, but I managed to do it in the end, with a little encouragement. Originally, I was just going to tie the ends into a bow at the back, but it looked much too big in comparison to the rest of her, and with a little experimenting, I decided on wrapping the ends around her lower torso, a little like an obi effect before tying them into a little knot at the back. Something's missing though, the sleeves just don't look finished, almost out of place. I know! Ribbon! Everything can be fixed with ribbon. I quickly added a little gather stitch around the bottom of each sleeve at the wrist to give a nice little puff sleeve look before taking the ribbon once more to make little cuffs. There we go, much better. It still looks a little off though. I know, let's give her little legs a touch of detail as well. Let's crack out that white paint again. I started with just her hooves, taking once again 4 layers to get the white completely opaque. While the white hooves look good, it's still not enough, so I decided to sponge white acrylic on her legs to create more of a gradient, using it to balance out the brown of her main body. As always, I did a few coats to get the desired level of coverage that I wanted. Wanting her hooves to stand out a little from the bottom of her legs, I mixed up a mixture of PVA glue and iridescent glitter and lightly coated only her hooves. With her clothes finished, let's move on to her face. Using pastels, I start by shading the inside of her ears before moving on to blushing her little cheeks, nose and lips, using darker colours to add more depth, as well as to show more of the blushing. Since she has a darker skin tone, it needs to be a bit darker and more vibrant in order to show up. Once I'm happy with the pastels, I then move on to the pencils. I lost the footage of the first pass of the pencils, sorry guys! With each layer, I build pigment, shadows and depth. It was fun working on freckles again. I should do it more often. I decided to try a completely new expression this time. A complete gamble, but I think it really paid off in the end. Finally, I add a little shimmer to her cheeks before doing the highlights of her eyes before glossing both her eyes and lips. Now, let's give her little cross-eyed something to focus on. Using glue and glitter, I tried to make it look like she had a snowflake on her tiny little nose. I tried a few different ways, but this is the one that worked out the best without taking away from the rest of her expression. Now, it's time to release the head burrito. Oh, she looks so cute with her hair down, but you know what will make her look even cuter? Frosted antlers. So let's tie her hair back out of the way for now and crack the paints out yet again. Using the sponge method again, I lightly added white to the tips of her antlers to give a light frosted look, this time only using one coat, letting it dry before cracking out my glue and iridescent combo again to really make them glisten. Now they are dry, we can get back to doing her hair. After releasing it from the hairband that was keeping it out of the way while I worked on her antlers, I brushed out her hair before carefully sectioning her fringe, braiding it and fastening the braids with a separate band each. I've seen some hairstyles recently on Pinterest which uses a pipe cleaner in order to make a bun, but no matter what I did or tried, it just didn't look right. It looked too bulky or it wouldn't sit right. It was a real struggle to get the head to stay still as well while I was working on it because it's so small. I tried trimming the hair so it was all the same length to try and fix some of the issues I was having, like the loose hair sticking up out of the bun. But that didn't work either, so in the end I gave up and tried something else. I evened out the trim I'd given her before sectioning off more of her hair, creating 2 more braids, one on each side. I also redid the front braids while I was at it because by this point I'd gotten better at being able to keep her head still while I was working on her. With the braids done, I brushed out her hair yet again, doing my best to untangle any of the loose hairs from around her antlers before pulling the remaining hair back into a ponytail, allowing me to get to where the green used to be in the back of her head. I tried just tying them there in place, but it just wasn't enough to hold them there, not where I wanted them to anyway. So instead I used a little bit of hot glue and glued them into place instead, releasing the ends of the braids for a more seamless look. The second elastic was really stubborn and just did not want to come out no matter how hard I tried. However, I was victorious in the end. Dusk 1, band 0. After letting the ponytails down once more, I took the second set of braids and tied them together at the back of her head. Giving her hair another little brush in hopes it would tame her hair a little better, I realised it wasn't going to be enough. So I sectioned off some more hair and brought both pieces round the back of her head as I did with the braids, but this time I tied them together with a band underneath the braids, and then used a third band in order to tie both sections together. Her hair needs a hint of blue too though, so taking a long piece of ribbon, like I said, ribbon solves everything, I wrapped it several times around the elastic band bundle, using the ribbon to hide the bands before tying it off in a knot underneath the hair wrap, sealing the ribbon ends with a lighter. Again, be careful with the lighters, guys. There. See? Ribbon really does make everything better. Now that she's complete, are you ready to meet her? I'd like to introduce you to Lumi. She was so much fun to make, even if her hair did give me some trouble. I really enjoyed trying out a completely different expression. Sadly, we've not had any snow yet where I live, but I can't wait to take pictures of her out in the snow. I hope you all enjoyed following along in her journey. Until next time. Hi, Cookie.